What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at VOIN, an upcoming first-person action RPG centered around things like freedom of movement as well as, of course, fast-paced action. Now, I initially heard about this game myself back during a Steam Next Fest where they had put out a demo, and more recently, just here in a few days, the game is supposed to be releasing into early access, so I wanted to take a look at that demo and, of course, bring a video about it. Which is what this is. This is the public demo they have available that you're seeing. Now, it does notably differ, from what I understand, from the early access build that's upcoming, mostly things like the story elements, an extra explorable area, some boss fights, and more in-depth progression will be present in that build. But nonetheless, the demo does what a demo is meant to do, which is give you a good idea of what the game is supposed to be gameplay-wise, so we can still talk a bit about that. Now, as the story is largely absent from the demo, the general gist of it is mostly just that you seem to be some sort of construct awakened to do battle with these fleshy monstrosities. Though it is my understanding there is meant to be a full narrative here alongside proper quests. There's even a hub, and they reference that you'll be able to talk to and speak to people at your main hub area about these quests. So it looks like there will be a bit more to do alongside all of the hacking and slashing as it turns out. But from there we've got the bulk of the game. Now right away, the game has you getting to grips with your freedom of movement. For starters, there's no fall damage as an example. In fact, if you fall far enough, you'll do a big lightning AoE around your character, which when combined with the game's movement mode can help you out. So if you sheath your weapon, your character will be able to sort of teleport around the general area, potentially even getting far up in the air, only to then drop down on enemies' heads as a result. And on top of that, once you get to your hub area and the actual open explorable area, you can start grabbing onto anchor points to pull you around places, and that's to say nothing, of course, of the sprint and dodge mechanics, so movement plays a very big role here, and the game itself seems quite vertical thus far, meaning that there's plenty of stuff to get up on top of, which seems to play a fairly big role in things like the exploration as an example. So in the big explorable area, after you pass the tutorial, you can unlock these points that then become like anchor points for you to grab onto and quickly traverse the environment. So it looks like there will be a fair bit of fun to be had there, though as you probably caught there, most of the gameplay takes place in large open areas that you will be running through, killing enemies and gathering loot from. Most of the loot you're going to find in these runs is going to be corrupted, which just means that if you die before it gets back to the hub and cleansed, you're going to lose it. So there are elements of a extraction type of game here. Now, in order to leave a given area, you look up at the sky and call for help, and then you have to make your way to the portal out. At which point, you'll be able to bring those items to the forge, which cleanses them. But while you're there, you may have just noticed that when enemies die, you pick up, I believe it just calls them clots, and you're going to spend these on progression. Now, progression itself is largely down to, of course, the weapons you find and are able to use. There are different types and the like. And your equipment. You can upgrade this equipment at the same place that you get it cleansed at, which seemed like an interesting mechanic. Now, you will also be spending that currency on leveling up, though in the demo this mostly just seemed to passively increase your damage, but it's my understanding this will be more fleshed out at some point. In particular, though, the skills available to you. So if you find a special currency, you can unlock skills that then, of course, get hotkeyed onto buttons and allow you to do more and more. For instance, the one I grabbed in the demo was a big lightning charge up, but there's a whole host more to get your hands on. But before you actually dive into any of these particular areas, you can actually customize things like the difficulty, the overall health of these enemies, which is all done by interacting with these skulls in the given hub area, near where you would jump into these missions from, which I thought was a nice little touch. So you do seem to have a fair bit of control over exactly how difficult any of these given areas will be. So there's that, but the combat itself is pretty much what you see on screen here. You go in, hack away, dodge out of the way when the enemy's about to hit you. Your standard yellow can be dodged, but the big flashy red attacks need to, be completely avoided. And there do seem to be plenty of enemy types, from your basic grunts to more hardcore variants, and even a fair few boss fights, as you might imagine. You do have to watch out, though, as you yourself are a fair bit fragile. And it really doesn't take much to knock you out, even on the, I would say, lower end of the difficulty spectrum. But when you put all that together, I think you have a potentially very interesting title. But I would say it's largely going to come down to the game's story and how well some of those narrative elements really pull it all together. But looking at it otherwise, I would say the environment and art looks really interesting. The combat and even just movement around the various levels feels really good. And if the early access period for this game manages to contribute to a compelling story and narrative content on top of refining and honing that core gameplay loop around movement and combat and making that feel as good as possible, then I think VOIN here might actually shape up to be something particularly interesting. But as always, when it comes to early access, that's going to be a decision you got to make yourself, especially since I have no idea what this is going to wind up costing, which will be a not insignificant factor in that whole bit of mental math. But for the moment, I think that's just about everything important to know about VOIN. And to that end, I'd be curious to hear what you think about it down in the comment section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.